What if the biggest standing ovation of the night wasn't for a performance, but for a takedown? The crowd at the 2025 Gotham Film Awards had barely finished clapping when Hugh Jackman stepped up to the microphone. Flanked by Kate Hudson, his luminous co-star in the upcoming musical drama song Sung Blue, Hugh looked every inch the Hollywood legend. Tuxedo sharp, gracious smile, posture straight as if sculpted by decades of theater discipline. The moment was poised to be charming, harmless, predictable. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. But it wasn't, because in just a few minutes, on live camera, with hundreds of A-listers watching, he delivered a line so blistering, so direct, so utterly un-Hugh, that it stopped the room cold. I think it's time we stop pretending Meghan Markle belongs in this industry. Gasps. Audible gasps. Was it a joke? Was it shade? Was it scripted? No one knew. Not at first. What they didn't know was that Hugh didn't blink. He didn't smile. He wasn't doing a bit. This wasn't a roast. This was personal, direct, and it was deliberate. And just like that, the Gotham Film Awards, typically one of Hollywood's cozier, more indie-flavored celebrations, was thrust into global headlines for a moment that no one, not even the producers, saw coming. But what came next was even more explosive, because this wasn't just a stray jab from a respected actor. This was the opening salvo in a full-blown industry mutiny. So what pushed Hugh Jackman, universally beloved, notoriously diplomatic, and one of the few A-listers untouched by scandal, to take such a bold swing? And why now? Let's be clear. This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment improv. As we'll uncover, there were whispers for weeks. Memos, emails, late-night meetings, even an envelope, one that changed everything minutes before Hugh walked on stage. And Meghan? She had no idea it was coming. But here's the thing. This story isn't just about Meghan Markle, or Hugh Jackman, or even Hollywood politics. It's about truth, about how an industry built on illusion sometimes cracks under the weight of its own contradictions, about how someone can be adored by tabloids and Netflix thumbnails, but loathed behind closed studio doors, and how one person's demand for spotlight can spark an entire industry's silent rebellion. Because behind that single line from Hugh Jackman lies a mountain of quiet resentment. Producers frustrated, crews exhausted, co-stars biting their tongues for years, brands quietly backing away, award show organizers redrafting their guest lists. It's been building, simmering, waiting for someone to finally say it aloud. And Hugh said it. But did you catch what he said right after? The cameras panned away before most people could hear it, but several in the front rows did. And so did one backstage mic that never got cut. He said, "If you treat this town like your playground, don't be surprised when it closes the gate on you." Now that line never made it to the press release. But we have it, and we have much more. Because in the hours, then days, after Hugh's speech, Hollywood began unraveling in ways no one expected. The social media chaos, the cold shoulders at industry brunches, the revoked invites, the silent removal of Meghan's name from award slates, the panic inside Netflix's marketing team, the stunned calls from talent agencies, the leaked emails, the studio executives who had just signed deals with her scrambling to find legal exits, and perhaps most shocking of all, the mysterious letter, authored by Meghan herself, circulating quietly behind the scenes for months. A letter filled with demands, assumptions, and tone-deaf declarations that left more than one Hollywood veteran speechless. Some called it arrogance. Others called it entitlement. Hugh? He called it a breaking point. But let's rewind. This isn't the first time Meghan Markle's name has been tied to controversy in Hollywood. From her buzzy but short-lived Netflix docuseries, to the cooking show that never quite cooked, to the lifestyle brand launch that triggered mass returns and public complaints, there's been a pattern. And it all seemed to come to a head at the Gotham Film Awards. But why there? Why that moment? That's where things get interesting. Because Sung Blue, the musical film for which Hugh and Kate were receiving the first ever Gotham musical tribute, wasn't just a celebration of music and resilience. It was also a quiet reflection on authenticity, on staying true to your craft when the spotlight starts blinding you. And some insiders say Hugh saw the moment as poetic. A full-circle return to integrity. Hollywood loves a metaphor, but not everyone was clapping. As Hugh left the stage that night, Insiders say one major studio head called her assistant and said, "Pull everything we've got with Meghan. I don't care what it costs." Within hours, Meghan's PR team was scrambling. Damage control calls were made. Talking points circulated. Clarify the context. One memo read. Reframe it as a misunderstanding. Another suggested they paint Hugh as out of touch with modern celebrity. But here's the catch. Hugh wasn't alone. Sources confirmed that at least 3 other high-profile actors had considered making similar comments at previous events, but were told by their teams to back off. Hugh didn't back off, and in doing so, he might have ended Meghan Markle's chances of ever fully re-entering the inner circle of Hollywood power. But that's not even the biggest twist. Because what came next? That envelope we mentioned? The one Hugh reportedly received just minutes before taking the stage? Inside it was something so damaging, so deeply unflattering, that even Kate Hudson, long considered a neutral, upbeat Hollywood mainstay, was said to be furious after reading it. She reportedly told a producer backstage, "She actually wrote this? Like, with her own hands." The fallout was immediate, and what started as an uncomfortable awards night moment quickly escalated into a multi-studio reckoning about Meghan Markle's future in the entertainment industry. But how did we get here? How did a woman once welcomed into the Hollywood elite, embraced by the most powerful talk show hosts in the world, and gifted a platform most could only dream of fall so hard, so fast? And more importantly, what exactly did Hugh Jackman know when he decided to go nuclear? Because make no mistake, this wasn't spontaneous. This was calculated. This was planned. And yet, the way it unraveled was anything but controlled. From backstage whispers to hacked group chats. From Trevor Engleson's sudden reappearance to a viral photo Kate Hudson posted days later, the dominoes started falling. And they didn't stop. We're going to break it all down. Every tense moment, every buried comment, every unsent email, and every A-lister's silent reaction. Because this isn't just a celebrity drama. This is a Hollywood reckoning. A reckoning led by one of its most respected voices and targeted at one of its most controversial figures. So settle in. Because what you're about to hear will change the way you see Hugh Jackman, Meghan Markle, and the delicate, dangerous power dynamics of an industry built on charm and silence. But first, what exactly happened on that stage? What words did Hugh say that made half the room shift in their seats, and the other half erupt into quiet applause? What was in that envelope? And why did someone in the audience, seated in the second row, whisper, "Oh my God, this is really happening"? Because after that moment, nothing in Hollywood would be the same again. What does it sound like when a room full of celebrities stops breathing? Not metaphorically, literally. The Gotham Film Awards are known for being relaxed, even playful. A far cry from the glitzy pressure cooker of the Oscars or the stiff politics of the Golden Globes. It's where indie legends mingle with Hollywood heavyweights, where filmmakers sip wine instead of swallowing nerves. It's the kind of room where everyone knows each other, or at least pretends to. But on the night of November 30th, 2025, something else settled into the air. Something dense, sharp, icy. A line was about to be crossed, and no one, not even Hugh Jackman, would be able to uncross it. Let's rewind, just a few minutes before the moment that lit the fuse. The lights dimmed. The Gotham Musical Tribute, an inaugural honor, crafted to celebrate excellence in film-driven music storytelling, was being awarded for the first time ever. The recipients, Hugh Jackman and Kate Hudson, stars of the hotly anticipated musical song Sung Blue. The applause was thunderous, warm, deserved. They took the stage together, flawless in posture, radiant in presence. Kate's electric blue gown shimmered under the soft spotlight. Hugh, in a crisp black tuxedo with a royal blue pocket square, looked every bit the seasoned stage actor he is. The music faded. Kate spoke first, gracious, funny, heartfelt. A quick story about rehearsing vocal warm-ups with Hugh at 6 a.m., sharing a gluten-free donut in a freezing New York warehouse. Laughter, clapping. Then it was Hugh's turn. He stepped to the mic, and it was subtle at first. He began the way anyone would expect, thanking the Gotham Awards committee, the producers of Song Sung Blue, his vocal coach, his family. But then something in his voice shifted, just enough for the room to notice. Not a tremble, not a misstep, but an edge. "As we stand here tonight," he began, we're reminded that this industry thrives when it embraces truth, when it rewards those who pour their souls into the work, not just those who know how to manipulate the spotlight. That's when some faces tensed, because it wasn't just a general statement anymore. It was targeted, and before anyone could second-guess where this was going, Hugh said it. There's a growing trend in this town, where brand matters more than craft, where entitlement masquerades as artistry. And I think it's time we stop pretending Meghan Markle belongs in this industry. There was a beat, a full, stomach-dropping pause. Then gasps, some from shock, others from sheer disbelief. You could practically hear the necks turning. Kate Hudson's smile faltered, just a fraction. Her eyes flicked sideways, quickly, nervously. Her hands gripped the sides of her gown. The camera cut to the audience, but only briefly. A well-known director in the front row tilted his head. A publicist dropped her phone. One actor mouthed something that read like, "Oh my God." Hugh didn't blink. He didn't laugh. He didn't play it off. This wasn't performance. This wasn't accidental. He meant it. And that's what terrified the room. Because you have to understand, Hollywood is a town of careful choreography. Every speech, every quip, every red carpet smile is managed, polished, focus grouped. And Hugh Jackman? He's the poster boy for grace under pressure. He's not a pot stirrer. He's not a headline hunter. So if he was saying it, then maybe everyone else had been thinking it. There's a term in the industry, breaking the seal. It means saying what everyone else is too afraid to voice. Once someone does, the room can't pretend anymore. And Hugh? He shattered the seal. Now here's what the cameras didn't catch. A man in a gray suit stood up, quietly, and walked out. His name? Jared Halpern. Senior Vice President of Talent Acquisitions at a major streaming platform. He was gone before Hugh even reached his next line. A woman in the fifth row whispered, "He's actually doing it," to the person next to her, unaware her mic pack was still on, broadcasting quietly into the control booth. Another woman crossed her legs, leaned back, and smirked. The room wasn't divided. It was detonated. So why did he do it? Why, during what was supposed to be a musical celebration, did Hugh Jackman, diplomatic, universally beloved Hugh Jackman, take the biggest swing of his career? Let's step into the moments just before the speech. According to one backstage staffer, an envelope was handed to Hugh in the green room roughly 20 minutes prior to the segment. The envelope bore no label, no seal, just a folded, cream-colored paper inside. Whatever he read changed the tone of his speech. He reportedly looked up at Kate Hudson, who was adjusting her earring in a nearby mirror, and said, "Is this for real?" Kate glanced over, shrugged. Apparently. Later, she would refuse to comment on what was inside. But multiple sources confirmed the letter included excerpts from a document written by Meghan Markle, a pitch letter sent earlier that month to several studios, including one partially funding Song Sung Blue. The letter, titled "My Vision for the Future of Entertainment," reportedly included statements such as, "I represent the modern voice of royalty in entertainment. Studios must evolve beyond the outdated metrics of talent and instead embrace the symbolism of cultural transformation. It's time to redefine success, and I am that redefinition." It was tone-deaf, arrogant, unchecked. Worse, she allegedly requested to be considered for a cameo role in Song Sung Blue as a metaphorical character representing misunderstood resilience. The producers didn't just pass. They were insulted. And according to one of them, a longtime friend of Hugh, he showed him the letter days before the ceremony. Hugh was reportedly stunned. "This isn't ambition," he said. "This is delusion." So that night, standing under the lights, flanked by the very people who worked for their place in the spotlight, Hugh made a choice. Not a tantrum, a reckoning. Because here's the thing. Meghan Markle's Hollywood arc wasn't just about bad scripts or failed brands. It was about something deeper, a disconnect. A growing resentment among real artists who watched her leapfrog her way into rooms they fought decades to enter. Sure, she had connections, prestige, buzz, but she lacked something else, the respect of her peers. And when you lose that, no PR machine in the world can save you. Back in the room, the tension was so thick you could taste it. The host, trying to salvage the night, stepped in with a quick, nervous joke about Aussies always speaking their mind. There was scattered laughter. But the energy had shifted. Backstage, assistants were texting furiously. One showrunner whispered to a colleague, "Is this going to screw our deal?" A streaming exec muttered, "We're going to have to cancel Monday's meeting." The dominoes had begun falling. Meanwhile, Hugh wrapped up his speech with grace. No apology, no retreat. He simply ended by saying, "This industry rewards honesty, eventually. I just hope we remember who earned their place and who simply expected it." He smiled, turned to Kate. Off they walked. Applause followed, but not the usual thunderous kind. This was uneven, polite, nervous. Some clapped harder, others barely moved. A few whispered. One or two stood up. But no one, not a single person, forgot what had just happened. Because in less than 5 minutes, Hugh Jackman had said out loud what Hollywood had only dared to text. He wasn't playing by the rules anymore. He didn't need to. And that envelope? Whatever it contained, it pushed a man known for kindness into a rare moment of fire. And the spark he lit was about to ignite far more than a PR headache. It was about to explode across every agency, every studio, every red carpet. And as the lights dimmed for the next segment of the show, somewhere backstage, Kate Hudson made a phone call. Not to her publicist, not to her agent, but to someone no one expected. And what she said would change the direction of this saga in a way that even Hugh didn't see coming. What if the most explosive line of the night wasn't the one spoken on stage? What if the real detonator, the spark that lit the match, was slipped into someone's hands under low light, minutes before they walked in front of cameras? That's the detail the public missed. While headlines screamed about Hugh Jackman's scorching rebuke of Meghan Markle from the Gotham Film Awards stage, what they didn't see, what they weren't supposed to see, was what happened 20 minutes before, in the green room. Off camera, silent, unfilmed, and yet everything that followed hinged on that moment. A man in all black, baseball cap, unnamed, untagged, and unknown to most. He wasn't wearing a staff badge. He wasn't on any guest list. But he walked directly into the talent holding area with the confidence of someone who belonged. He moved past the catering table, past two distracted assistants huddled over schedules, and headed straight toward Hugh Jackman's corner of the room. He didn't speak. He simply handed Hugh a sealed cream envelope, slightly thick, hand-addressed in what looked like bold, almost hurried calligraphy. Then he turned and left. Some say Kate Hudson saw it. Others say she was too focused on adjusting her mic pack. But Hugh? He opened it. What he read inside reportedly changed the tone of his speech, changed the energy in the room, and, depending on who you ask, changed the trajectory of Meghan Markle's Hollywood career. So what was in that envelope? Let's break it down. 3 pages. Folded. No heading. No signature. No watermark. But the content? Damning. According to an insider who viewed the documents after the fact, the envelope contained an internal memo circulating among 3 major producers from earlier that month, along with an attached letter that Meghan Markle herself had submitted as a creative pitch for an upcoming prestige drama series. The drama? A fictionalized but heavily inspired period series about a misunderstood American woman who marries into European aristocracy and later becomes a global wellness icon and voice of compassion. Sound familiar? The letter, reportedly titled "My Narrative is the World's Narrative," included tone-deaf suggestions for character arcs, narrative metaphors, and, most controversially, a non-negotiable clause that she be cast in a recurring guest role, playing a visionary oracle. That was the phrase. Visionary oracle. The producers, at first, thought it was a prank, but the letter was real. Worse still, Meghan allegedly suggested in a handwritten margin note, "We can incorporate real press headlines for authenticity. I retain rights to approve final cut of any scenes inspired by my life." To the producers, serious, seasoned professionals, it wasn't just narcissistic. It was career suicide. The document had circulated in private circles for weeks. First shared as a "look what we got" curiosity, then as a red flag. And by the time it landed in Hugh Jackman's hands, it had morphed into a reckoning. Now pause and ask yourself, why Hugh? Why would someone intentionally deliver that memo to him at that exact moment? Because the Gotham Awards, especially this new musical tribute segment, weren't just celebrating a film. They were celebrating the integrity of performance, the grit, the sweat, the long nights in studio booths and bruised knees from choreography rehearsals. Song Sung Blue was the kind of project where everyone showed up, every day, ready to bleed for the work. And then there was Meghan, offering herself as a visionary oracle, inserting herself into art she didn't make, demanding credit in a system she hadn't paid dues to, branding herself as the voice of modern nobility, without ever doing the one thing this industry respects above all else: the work. And Hugh? Hugh's career is defined by exactly that. This was a man who sang live on camera in Les Miserables, rehearsed stage combat for The Boy from Oz, and spent decades building a reputation as an actor's actor. He knows what it means to earn applause the hard way. So imagine what that letter must have felt like to him. A slap, a mockery of every call time, every rehearsal, every time he'd turned down shallow fame to protect deeper craft. And once he read that letter, there was no going back. Now here's where it gets even messier. After Hugh read it, he didn't say much. Not at first, but he walked over to Kate Hudson, handed her the pages, and said one sentence. "This is why everything's broken." Kate reads silently for a moment, her eyebrows raised. She turned, glanced toward a producer across the room, then muttered, "She actually wrote this?" There was no punchline, no snark, just disbelief. And then Kate did something unusual. She took out her phone, made a call, walked to the far corner of the room, covered her mouth as she whispered into the receiver. We still don't know who she called. Some say it was her publicist. Others insist it was her mother, Goldie Hawn, who has close ties to several studio execs and industry decision-makers. But what we do know is that the call lasted under 90 seconds. And when she returned, Kate looked paler, colder. She said to Hugh, "Do what you need to do." And that was it. He walked on stage. The cameras rolled. And 5 minutes later, the entertainment industry had a new quote that would echo for months. "It's time we stop pretending Meghan Markle belongs in this industry." But what the public didn't know was that he hadn't acted alone. Because just 24 hours earlier, that same envelope had been offered to two other presenters at a different award show. Both turned it down. Both said, "I can't afford that kind of backlash." Hugh didn't care. He was done being silent. And the people who handed him that envelope, they wanted a reckoning. They were done protecting a narrative they no longer believed in. That moment sparked chaos. Let's jump back to the awards green room. Immediately after Hugh and Kate left the stage, a low buzz began to ripple across phones. Notifications lighting up. A group chat between studio execs, nicknamed Candle Wax, suddenly went from dormant to wildfire. Dozens of messages in minutes. Did he really say it? Was that in the teleprompter? This changes everything. One executive from a major streaming platform reportedly said, "Kill every pitch tied to her name. I don't care what we lose." This just tipped. The line had been crossed. And the fallout wasn't theoretical anymore. It was strategic. Because here's the part that's truly shocking. The letter in that envelope wasn't even the worst of it. There was another page. One never shown to the press, never leaked, but confirmed by multiple insiders. A typed summary from a former showrunner Meghan worked with during her early acting days. It wasn't defamatory, but it was brutally honest. A bullet point list of complaints. Overly controlling behavior. PR tactics that derailed production timelines. Late arrivals masked by emotional justifications. Unsolicited notes on scripts she wasn't hired to edit. Staff leaving mid-shoot. And at the bottom of the page, the final line. "If she comes back to this industry, we all lose." That's the sentence that sealed Hugh's resolve. Not out of anger. Out of respect for the industry he loved. He saw what was happening. The quiet compromise. The bending of rules for one person while everyone else played by them. And he decided to speak. Now here's where it gets chilling. An unnamed assistant from the awards staff told reporters that as Hugh walked off the stage, envelope still in hand, he passed by one of the Gotham producers. They shared a look. And the producer reportedly said, "You just did what the whole room wanted to do." And Hugh? He just nodded. He didn't say a word. Because the damage was already done. Or maybe it had finally begun. But what came next would go far beyond speeches, envelopes, and industry whisperings. Because as the dust settled from Hugh's words, a wave of Hollywood power brokers began making phone calls. And Meghan Markle, unaware of the storm brewing, was about to walk into a wall of silence, sabotage, and stunning rejection, all sparked by one moment, one envelope, and one actress who made a single, cryptic phone call backstage. A call that, in just 48 hours, would reach the ears of someone Meghan never expected to hear from again. What if the person standing beside Hugh Jackman on stage wasn't just surprised? What if she knew? What if she helped? As the Gotham Film Awards footage circulated like wildfire, clips dissected frame by frame, lip-read by amateur sleuths and insiders alike, one name kept resurfacing in the conversation. Not Hugh, not Meghan, Kate. Kate Hudson. She was right there, on stage, inches from the microphone when Hugh made that comment. She was applauding moments before, laughing, smiling. Everything seemed normal until it wasn't. And when Hugh pivoted into what would become the most controversial speech of the year, Kate's reaction changed, so subtly, so precisely, that some say it couldn't possibly have been spontaneous. Because if you know Kate Hudson, you know she's a performer. Raised on movie sets, trained in press circuits, fluent in emotional modulation. Her face is her tool, her instrument, her shield. So when her eyebrows lifted, her smile faded just slightly, and her hands dropped to her sides, people noticed. Some saw shock, others saw awareness, and a few saw complicity. Let's rewind to the moment just before the speech. Backstage, low lighting, close quarters. Kate was pacing near a wall of mirrors, checking her earpiece, going over talking points with her assistant. Hugh was reading the letter, the same letter we now know originated from Meghan Markle's camp, filled with ego, delusion, and an entitlement that enraged more than just Hugh. When he passed the letter to Kate, she didn't hesitate. She read it. She read every line. And when she reached the final paragraph, the one where Meghan called herself a modern voice of grace in a legacy industry gasping for relevance, Kate reportedly muttered under her breath, "She really thinks that's how this works?" Minutes later, she made a phone call. Quick, quiet, cryptic. Then she returned to Hugh and said, "Do what you need to do." That moment, that sentence, is where the questions begin. Was she giving him permission? Was she throwing her weight behind what would become the most daring career gamble of Hugh's life? Or was she making sure she wasn't left behind when the bomb dropped? Now let's look closer. Kate Hudson isn't just another actress. She's Hollywood royalty. The daughter of Goldie Hawn. The stepdaughter of Kurt Russell. She's been on carpets since she was a child. She knows the rules. She knows every power player in town. And more importantly, she knows how the tides turn. You don't last in this industry without learning when to back away and when to strike. So the fact that she didn't interrupt Hugh, didn't deflect, didn't step in to lighten the tone or pivot back to the teleprompter, that wasn't an accident. She stood next to him as he condemned Meghan Markle's place in Hollywood. And when the crowd recoiled in confusion, she didn't recoil. She stood, still, composed, almost relieved. Why? Because, as insiders suggest, Kate had her own reasons. Let's peel back the curtain. Over the past 2 years, Kate Hudson has quietly been trying to shift her brand, moving from rom-com icon to serious producer, launching an independent production company, building a reputation for integrity, depth, and substance in a town oversaturated with shallow fame. And according to one source inside her team, Meghan Markle had, repeatedly, tried to attach herself to Kate's projects. Emails, DMs, studio lobbying. At least 2 pitches from Meghan's representatives requested meetings with Kate to discuss female-forward content with royal resonance. Kate declined both times. Politely, quietly, without spectacle. But Meghan persisted. And then came the real flashpoint, Song Sung Blue. Weeks before production began, Meghan allegedly reached out to a co-producer and suggested a marketing tie-in between the film and her lifestyle brand. As ever, a tea blend named after one of the songs in the film. Cross-promotion. Organic partnerships. Except it wasn't organic. It was forced. Opportunistic. And it rubbed Kate the wrong way. She reportedly told the producer, "This film is about heartbreak, survival, and music, not branding yourself as the next Diana." That remark, shared quietly in industry circles, signaled a line had been crossed. Kate, like Hugh, was done pretending. And yet, she didn't make a public statement. She didn't take to Instagram. She didn't blast Meghan in interviews. Instead, she let Hugh speak. But here's the thing. After the Gotham speech, after the backlash began to swell, Kate didn't distance herself from Hugh. She didn't issue clarifying remarks or go into hiding. She doubled down. Within hours, her team posted a photo on her official account. Her and Hugh, arm in arm, smiling backstage. No caption, just the image. But the background? A torn script page with Meghan's character pitch visible on the table behind them. Deliberate? Coincidence? Fans noticed immediately. She's sending a message, one commenter wrote. She's with Hugh on this. And then came the lip reader breakdowns. In the clip of the speech, as Hugh begins his now infamous remarks, Kate is seen turning slightly and mouthing what looks like. He's actually doing it. Not stopping him. Not pulling focus. Just letting it happen. And then, toward the end of the speech, she nods. Slight. Almost imperceptible. But unmistakable. A nod of approval? Now some will argue. Kate was caught off guard. That her facial reactions were human, unpredictable, unrehearsed. But those who've watched her career closely know, nothing Kate Hudson does on stage is unrehearsed. She's savvy, controlled, always calculating her next move. So here's the theory taking hold in Hollywood. Kate wasn't just a co-recipient of the Gotham musical tribute. She was a silent co-conspirator. She knew the speech was coming. Maybe not the exact words, maybe not the nuclear tone, but she knew Hugh was going to say something. And she let it happen. Not because she wanted drama, but because she, like Hugh, was fed up. Fed up with the hypocrisy, the unchecked ego, the performative compassion that masked strategic careerism. And perhaps, most importantly, she knew that Hollywood was ready. Because if the crowd had turned on Hugh, if the speech had flopped, Kate could have stepped back, played innocent, distanced herself from the fallout. But it didn't flop. In fact, it resonated. Within hours, group chats were lighting up. Directors, agents, casting execs, and the phrase that kept popping up again and again. Hugh said it, but Kate stood with him. That's powerful. That's alliance. And it didn't end there. In the days that followed, Kate canceled 2 scheduled podcast interviews. Both were expected to ask about Meghan. Both were known for softball celebrity PR fluff. She canceled. Instead, she went quiet. And then, she was spotted having lunch with Reese Witherspoon, another woman quietly known to have cooled on Meghan in recent years. Another producer-turned-actress who values story over spectacle. The photo hit TMZ. No captions. No quotes. Just 2 women in sunglasses and silence. But in Hollywood, silence is strategy. And Kate's silence spoke volumes. Because in every scandal, there are those who light the match, and those who let it burn. Kate Hudson might not have struck the flame, but she made damn sure the room had enough oxygen. So the question is, was she simply supporting her friend? Or was she helping lead the takedown? And if the latter, what's her next move? Because as one studio executive whispered over a now-leaked text, Kate's not just in Hugh's corner. She's staking her claim on the future of this industry. But as Meghan's team began their frantic damage control tour, and Hollywood began quietly freezing her out, one more player stepped onto the chessboard. Someone from Meghan's past. Someone who'd seen it all before. And he wasn't planning to stay silent this time. What do you do when silence becomes more damning than speech? Because in Hollywood, when scandal erupts, it's not always about what people say. It's about who doesn't say anything, who unfollows, who cancels, who quietly pulls a project or skips a dinner party. It's in the whispers between stylists, the vague quotes in interviews, the sudden scheduling conflicts. And after Hugh Jackman's Gotham Film Awards bombshell, the industry didn't just react. It fractured. A Cold War had begun. But this wasn't fought with headlines or hashtags. It was fought behind the scenes, with publicists making urgent calls, agents whispering in bathrooms at Chateau Marmont, and A-listers drawing invisible lines between safe alliances and dangerous ones. Because now, being associated with Meghan Markle could cost you more than your reputation. It could cost you work. Let's go to the first public signs. It started with Instagram. Within hours of the Gotham Awards speech, eagle-eyed fans noticed Reese Witherspoon's official account had unfollowed Meghan Markle. No statement, no drama, just unfollowed. Within 6 hours, she was joined by several others: Priyanka Chopra, Drew Barrymore, Ava DuVernay. Coincidence? Not a chance. Because these aren't random names. These are strategic powerhouses. Women with their own media brands. Women who once publicly supported Meghan, or at least never spoke against her. And now? They were gone. Then came the endorsements. Just 2 days earlier, Meghan's As Ever lifestyle brand had posted a teaser collaboration with a clean beauty line, limited edition winter candles, featuring affirmation messages personally written by Meghan. Within 24 hours, that partner brand, based in Malibu and backed by two major celebrity investors, scrubbed the post, removed Meghan's name, delisted the product. When asked for comment, they cited a shift in brand alignment priorities. Hollywood translation, we're out. But the biggest blow came from inside the studios. A source within Amazon MGM Studios confirmed that executives paused all development meetings tied to Meghan's projects, including a much-rumored sequel to Chloe's Personal Friends, the feel-good Netflix-adjacent dramedy Meghan was allegedly set to produce and cameo in. Their reasoning? Market instability. Another insider put it more bluntly, we can't touch her right now. Then came Netflix. The streaming giant, Meghan's original golden ticket into post-royal fame, was suddenly very, very quiet. No press support, no tweets, no follow-up on the next phase of Archetypes, her podcast that had once debuted with fanfare and flattery. In fact, by the end of the week, Netflix quietly pulled the Markle-produced children's series, Pearl, from its upcoming slate's page. No announcement. Just gone. And yet, this wasn't just institutional distancing. This was personal. Let's look at some of the biggest names who once orbited Meghan and how they responded. Oprah Winfrey, the Queenmaker herself, the one who gave Meghan and Harry their most iconic and controversial sit-down interview. The woman who stared into the camera and asked, were you silent or were you silenced? She said nothing. No tweets. No Instagram stories. No defense. Sources close to Oprah told Page 6 that she was deeply uncomfortable with recent developments and not looking to make a public statement at this time. Translation? The bridge is burning, and she's not walking across it. Tyler Perry, another former ally. He famously provided Meghan and Harry a home during their transition out of the royal family. But after Gotham, crickets. And more tellingly, Perry's studio quietly announced two new female-led projects. With no Markle involvement, despite earlier rumors she might cameo in one. A source said, Tyler's focusing on original stories from new voices. That's not a compliment. Viola Davis. Here's where it got subtle, but sharp. Viola Davis was at the Gotham Awards that night. Seated near the back, far enough from the stage to avoid camera cuts, but close enough to witness every beat. Insiders say she clapped politely at the end of Hugh's speech, then turned to the person beside her and said, about time someone said it. If true, that line says everything. Because in Hollywood, who you support is a currency. And Hugh Jackman just became the industry's most unexpected revolutionary. But perhaps the most fascinating response came from Michael B. Jordan, a man known for discipline, precision, keeping his head down, staying neutral. Until now, 3 days after the Gotham bombshell, Michael B. Jordan gave an interview for Variety's Actors on Actors series. When asked about the recent surge of entitlement in the entertainment industry, he didn't name names, but he said, I think some people believe fame gives them a shortcut to greatness. But the truth is, we see through it. Audiences see through it. And the crew? They always see through it. Boom. You could practically feel the subtext. It was unmistakable. And when the clip was posted online, Hugh Jackman liked it. Subtle. Then came Tom Hanks, America's dad. He hasn't said anything publicly. But on December 1st, he reposted a message from Rita Wilson about authentic artists who put in the work. Again, no names. No context. But in a week where everyone was walking on eggshells, that post landed like a mic drop. And guess what? He unfollowed Meghan too. But let's not pretend it was a one-sided war. Because Meghan still has allies. A-list ones. The kind who don't back down. Ellen DeGeneres reposted a throwback of Meghan's visit to her show with the caption, always love catching up with this bright light. Cue backlash. Within minutes, comments flooded in, still defending her. Not the time, Ellen. Bright light or spotlight chaser. Chrissy Teigen posted a cryptic tweet. People love to tear women down. And when they're mixed race. Double standard x10. It got 100,000 likes. But also sparked a fierce debate. And then there was Beyoncé. Her silence was deafening. The woman once rumored to be in Meghan's inner circle said nothing. And the Bayhive noticed. One fan tweeted, If Queen Bee's not defending you, you're out of formation. But here's what really cemented the Cold War. A leaked group chat, allegedly between a few influential producers and mid-tier talent agents. Screenshots posted to Reddit, unverified, but widely circulated, showed one message that said, "The reckoning's here. Choose a lane." And that's what's happening now. Hollywood is choosing. Whispers in casting meetings. Sponsorship deals getting reevaluated. And the golden rule? No one wants to be caught between lanes. You're either Team Hugh or Team Meghan. But here's the twist. Even some of Meghan's former supporters are backing away not out of malice, but exhaustion. They're tired of cleaning up PR misfires. Tired of the drama. Tired of fighting battles Meghan seems to ignite but never fully owns. And in a town where energy is currency, Meghan's is starting to feel expensive. So what does this mean? It means the most powerful weapon in Hollywood isn't a headline. It's exclusion. It's what you're not invited to. Who stops calling? What projects you're suddenly not quite right for? And Meghan? She's finding herself alone on a very wide sidewalk. Because this isn't cancel culture. This is consequence culture. And while Hugh Jackman walked out of the Gotham Awards with a trophy in one hand and dignity in the other, Meghan walked into a reality she never expected. An industry she thought she'd conquered, quietly shutting the doors. But she wasn't done yet. Because as her name began disappearing from schedules and slates, she called someone who once knew how to navigate Hollywood better than anyone. Someone who knew her before the tiaras. Someone who still had a few things to say. His name? Trevor Engelson. And what he revealed next changed everything. How long does it take for a career to crumble in Hollywood? Not years. Not even months. Just 3 phone calls. 3 calls made in hushed voices. 3 emails marked urgent. 3 executives who, within 24 hours of the Gotham Awards, decided they were done. And Meghan Markle? She wasn't even given a warning. Because when the tide turns in Hollywood, it doesn't whisper. It roars. And the Monday morning after Hugh Jackman's bombshell, it sounded like a tsunami behind closed doors. Let's start with the first domino. Netflix. The streaming platform that once rolled out a royal red carpet for Meghan and Harry's docuseries. The company that had been eager to wrap itself in the prestige of post-royal relevance. They were the first to blink. Insiders revealed that just days before the Gotham Awards, Netflix's internal marketing team had been finalizing rollout plans for Meghan's long-rumored second docuseries, a lighter, lifestyle-driven follow-up to Harry and Meghan, focused on resilience, reinvention, and royalty in the modern age. But by the time Monday rolled around, that plan was dead. One executive, speaking anonymously, said the decision was made within hours of the Gotham speech. We knew the backlash was coming. But the second we saw the reaction inside the industry, we realized this wasn't sustainable. Another confirmed the company paused all development related to Meghan, pending what they called an optics review. Optics review. That's Hollywood code for, we're looking for a way to drop you without getting sued. But Meghan didn't see it coming. On Monday morning, she reportedly had a scheduled call with Netflix's partnerships team to discuss cross-platform branding. The call was canceled. Without rescheduling. Then came Amazon MGM Studios, Meghan's supposed golden goose. Just 6 months earlier, the studio had entered what was described as final conversations for her passion project, a semi-autobiographical feature-length film exploring the life of a woman balancing fame, motherhood, and the weight of inherited expectations. It was billed as Close Personal Friends 2.0, a tonal sequel to her underwhelming but well-marketed film debut. And yet, by Tuesday, executives pulled out. Officially, they cited budget realignment and evolving priorities. Unofficially, we can't build a tentpole around someone the town is freezing out. The script, once labeled high potential in internal documents, was downgraded to non-viable. The writer attached to the project, an Emmy-winning screenwriter, was released from their contract within 72 hours. They were told, "We're pivoting." But the biggest collapse was WME, Meghan's talent agency. The agency that had once proudly announced her as a client. The agency that had negotiated her speaker circuit appearances, her lifestyle brand placements, her alleged talks with Anna Wintour about a Vogue cover. They went dark. Meghan's calls. Unreturned. Her representative? On indefinite leave. By midweek, WME quietly removed Meghan's name from their client-facing media kit. It was a silent dismissal. No press release. No outrage. Just gone. And still, Meghan wasn't told directly. She only realized something was wrong when her longtime assistant reportedly noticed that her upcoming speaking engagement in Miami, booked through WME, had been delisted from the host website. The email from organizers said, "Due to a reevaluation of the event's programming needs, we are scaling back high-profile participation." Translation? Too hot to handle. And the lifestyle brand? As ever, Meghan's sleek, Duchess meets Goop venture had barely launched before the Gotham fallout began to drag it under. Retailers had already been nervous. The lavender face oil had drawn criticism for inflated prices. The empowerment spoons, engraved with quotes allegedly written by Meghan herself, were being returned in bulk. And now, 3 of the 4 anchor retail partners reportedly cut ties. One department store executive was blunt. The brand was a risk from day one, but we were willing to bet on the name. That name doesn't carry what it used to. What followed was a bloodbath. Contracts pulled. Inventory frozen. Packaging partnerships dissolved overnight. Meghan's team scrambled to do damage control, but they were no longer in control of the narrative. Because behind the scenes, Hollywood wasn't just reacting. They were coordinating. Multiple executives, normally competitors, had one goal in mind: minimize exposure. They weren't just backing away. They were scrubbing her name. Studio pitch trackers suddenly showed red flags on Meghan-adjacent concepts. Staffers were instructed to redirect any Meghan-related queries to legal. And when her team tried to spin the backlash as overblown, the reaction was swift. A casting director leaked a memo dated just 2 days after the Gotham Awards. It read, "Avoid Markle. Not worth the risk. No bankability. No goodwill." That line, "no goodwill," that's the kiss of death. Because in Hollywood, talent is everywhere. What matters, what really matters, is how many bridges you've burned. And Meghan? She wasn't just out of goodwill. She was out of lifelines. Still, she tried to pivot, tried to double down. Her reps pitched a live interview with a major daytime talk show, offering Meghan's truth about the Gotham moment. Producers passed. They didn't say no. They just stopped replying. Even The View, a show that once treated her like post-royal royalty, opted to cover the scandal without inviting her on. One host reportedly said off-air, "I love a comeback story, but this ain't it." Meghan's team then floated a podcast rebrand. A new slate of episodes under the Archetypes banner. More vulnerability. More unfiltered moments. Spotify passed. They'd already terminated their deal months earlier, but now they made it clear, do not repitch us this concept again. And then came the final blow. A tech startup Meghan had invested in, a mindfulness app aimed at empowering women, released a statement. It read, "We thank our early angel supporters. But as we move into our next funding round, we're realigning with voices that reflect our evolving mission." No mention of Meghan, just a quiet signal that her name was no longer an asset. It was a liability. And all of it, happened in less than a week. 1 week earlier, Meghan Markle had been a functioning part of Hollywood's complex machinery. Not universally beloved, but undeniably powerful. A name that opened doors, even if some creaked as they did. And now, she was radioactive. A brand without a home. A name without a team. An actress without a script. But even as her projects crumbled, her team scrambled, and her public silence deepened, another voice was about to emerge. Not from a studio. Not from a network. From her past. From a man who knew the real Meghan. Before the palaces, before the podcast microphones, before the curated lifestyle brand. Trevor Engelson, her ex-husband. The Hollywood producer she left behind when she met a prince. And now, he had something to say. Something he'd been holding on to for a very, very long time. What if the man Meghan Markle left behind never truly stayed silent? What if he'd been waiting, watching, gathering receipts? Because sometimes, revenge in Hollywood doesn't come with a bang. Sometimes it waits for the spotlight to move, the crowd to quiet, and the empire to wobble before stepping forward with the final push. And in this case, that man, the one who knew Meghan before the titles, the palaces, the PR, was Trevor Engelson, her first husband, a name many tried to forget. A chapter Meghan herself seemed determined to erase. But now, he was back in the conversation. And this time, he wasn't holding back. Let's start at the moment it all changed. 2 days after the Gotham Awards speech, a voicemail leaked to the media. Not accidentally, not through hackers, but via someone inside the industry. The message, sent from Trevor to a mid-level producer at a streaming platform, was short, calm, measured, but its content, explosive. Hey, just watch the Gotham stuff. Wild. I'm not surprised. Told you this 2 years ago. There's a reason everyone who's worked with her ends up exhausted. Anyway, call me. Got something you'll want to see. That was it. No rage. No insults. No bitterness. Just a quiet I told you so. But it hit Hollywood like a sledgehammer. Because Trevor Engelson had never gone on the record about Meghan. Not once. Not after the wedding. Not after the Oprah interview. Not after the Netflix series or Spotify fallout. He'd always kept his distance. Until now. And the fact that he spoke up now? That said everything. Because here's what people forget. Trevor Engelson wasn't some nobody Meghan dated in college. He was a respected producer. A real one. Credits on award-winning indie films. A reputation for mentoring young talent. Known for being low drama, logistics-focused, and deeply loyal to his crews. When Meghan married him in 2011, they were equals. Both hustling, both grinding. Hollywood strivers on the same level. But then came the fame. The royal family. The global headlines. And Trevor? He got left behind. Left in the dust with nothing but NDAs and whispers. But just because he didn't speak, didn't mean he couldn't. And now, after years of watching her dominate narratives, reshape timelines, and reinvent herself over and over again, he finally decided to correct the record. Sources close to Trevor say the Gotham Awards speech hit him like a thunderclap. Not because he was shocked, because he wasn't, but because finally, someone else had said what he'd been warning about for years. That Meghan Markle had never been interested in building things, only ascending, only controlling, only consuming the room. And Trevor? He had proof. Days after the voicemail leak, an anonymous envelope arrived at the editorial desk of a major entertainment outlet. Inside, a series of scanned emails dated between 2012 and 2013. Conversations between Meghan and early-stage producers on a canceled travel series she was briefly attached to during her Suits years. In one message, Meghan reportedly demands final cut on episodes, insists she approve all co-hosts, and even asks that the opening sequence capture her warmth, not her technical travel know-how, which isn't the core appeal. In another, she refers to the camera crew as supporting energy and says that interviews with locals should frame her reactions first. Not illegal, not scandalous, but narcissistic, and from Trevor's perspective, part of a larger pattern. Because sources say he kept more than emails. He kept letters, notes, even handwritten annotations Meghan made on old scripts, often filled with personal branding suggestions, quotes from Oprah, and goals like, make the audience feel seen, but don't show too much struggle. One line, allegedly scribbled next to a character breakdown, read, replace her. She's too pretty. No one will focus on me. Trevor never intended to share them. But now, he wasn't so sure. Especially when, according to insiders, Meghan's team tried to get ahead of the fallout by sending quiet legal threats to known associates, warning them against speaking out. That's when Trevor snapped. He wasn't just an ex-husband anymore. He was a witness. And the industry? They were listening. Because buried in the whispers, Trevor revealed something else. Something that hadn't been reported before. A project. Years ago, shortly after Meghan began dating Prince Harry, she approached Trevor, through intermediaries, with a proposition. She wanted to co-develop a scripted drama loosely based on a woman's transition from Hollywood to high society. Trevor declined. Politely. Quietly. But not before reading the treatment. And according to someone who saw it, it was identical to her later Netflix docuseries, except more fictionalized, more sanitized, more dripping in self-pity. The working title? The Other Side of the Crown. It was never made. But Trevor never forgot it. He reportedly told a friend. She always had a plan. She just needed someone else to pave the road. Now, as studios cut ties, agents bail, and her brand teeters, Trevor's calm warnings ring out louder than ever. And here's the kicker. He's not gloating. He's not bitter. He's calculated. Because Trevor isn't just reflecting. He's moving. Sources say he's quietly partnering with two other producers to develop a limited series, based on his early days in Hollywood, his experiences as a young producer, and the high-profile relationship that changed everything. The logline? What happens when ambition becomes its own fairy tale, and the prince doesn't show up? Too on the nose? Exactly what Hollywood loves. But don't expect a smear campaign. Trevor's play is more elegant. He's telling his story, not hers. But the parallels? They'll be impossible to miss. And Meghan's camp knows it. In fact, one lawyer connected to her team reportedly reached out to Trevor's reps with a preemptive warning. We hope this project doesn't stray into defamation territory. Trevor's response: I haven't even said her name. And legally, that matters. Because the industry is ready. Tired of the palace spin. Tired of the victim narrative. Tired of the carefully curated persona that, according to Trevor and others, never quite matched the behind-the-scenes behavior. Now, people are asking, what else does Trevor know? What hasn't he revealed? And more chillingly, what other bridges has Meghan burned that haven't collapsed yet? Because the tide isn't just turning, it's rising. And Trevor Engelson? He's just the beginning. Because in the envelope he sent to that producer, along with the emails and annotations, was something else. A copy of a letter. A letter Meghan allegedly wrote in 2014. A letter titled simply, My Vision. It was addressed to a showrunner. It laid out her plan for fame, brand expansion, and eventual social leadership. And at the very bottom, one line, scribbled in red ink. They'll follow the fairy tale. I'll write the ending. But now, that fairy tale is crumbling. And the ending might be written by someone else entirely. What if one letter, just one, was enough to ignite an entire industry revolt? Not a tabloid scandal. Not a paparazzi photo. Not a headline-grabbing divorce. A letter, written quietly, privately, sent to a few high-powered hands behind the scenes. And yet, that letter would become the epicenter of the biggest public implosion in modern Hollywood history. Because this wasn't just any letter. This was the letter, the one insiders now call the spark. And for months, it was buried, passed hand to hand in whispers, shared at after-dinner parties by screenwriters, shown on iPads during meetings with the phrase, "You have to read this." It was never meant for the public, never meant to leave the manicured circle of elite producers and streaming executives. But then Hugh Jackman read it, and everything changed. Let's rewind. Spring 2025. Meghan Markle, freshly removed from the final season of Archetypes, was pivoting again. This time, not just to lifestyle branding, but to prestige television. According to her inner circle, she wanted to be seen not as a celebrity, not even as a duchess, but as a visionary, a tastemaker, an auteur. And so, with a handful of advisors and PR consultants, she drafted a 6-page document. Its title? My Vision, a manifesto for transformative storytelling. It was sent to at least 4 major production companies, including a boutique studio that had just signed Hugh Jackman for a multi-picture deal. And it wasn't a pitch in the traditional sense. It was grandiose, a mixture of idealism, self-importance, and surreal creative control demands. It opened with, the world is at a crossroads. Entertainment must evolve into a mirror that reflects not just who we are, but who we aspire to be. And I, Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, am uniquely positioned to lead that evolution. Yes, she signed it that way, but it wasn't just the tone that stunned people. It was what she wanted. Let's break it down. The letter outlined her role as executive visionary on any project she touched. Final approval rights over casting, tone, music, trailers, and all international translations. Mandatory inclusion of symbolic royalty in every storyline. To reflect archetypes of feminine grace and misunderstood power. A non-negotiable clause that she be attached as either narrator, recurring guest star, or creative overseer in any film or series inspired by her proposed themes. A demand that any crew hired for projects she was attached to complete a 2-day compassion training module certified by her foundation. Yes, really. That's the kind of letter that doesn't just raise eyebrows, it stops the room. And when one producer received it during a team retreat in Big Sur, the entire table reportedly laughed out loud. But the laughter didn't last, because after the humor faded, the realization set in. This wasn't satire. It was serious, and it was dangerous. because it wasn't just about Meghan inserting herself into projects. It was about her trying to redefine the power structure of the industry, to make herself a gatekeeper for what she called modern myth-making.